Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Daily Triple. That's your no shit gaming news video. 3 news stories in one video with 0 faff. Game pricing has stayed fairly static over the past few years, while development costs have continued to spike as games get bigger and bigger. We were told that to alleviate game price increases that microtransactions were necessary. Well, despite in-game monetization being more prevalent than ever before, 2K Games has announced that the next-gen version of its new NBA game will be more expensive. As usual with the modern games industry, there are multiple versions of NBA 2K20 and you need a chart to understand what edition gets what, and even then, it's still more confusing than a Kojima game, but no less ridiculous. The standard version, if you're a loser and totally not cool, will cost the industry standard rate of $60 for the PS4 and Xbox One. However, if you're one of the hip kids and get the PS5 or Xbox Series X version, that'll cost you $70. There is no difference between these versions, despite one running on current hardware and the other on the new generation. But more than that, if you buy the standard version for current gen, you will then have to rebuy the game for the next gen system. Compare that with Microsoft, which is running its smart delivery system, which will mean that certain games you buy for Xbox One will be upgraded to the Xbox Series X version for free. CD Projekt and Bungie are offering a similar deal with Cyberpunk 2077 and Destiny 2, but for 2K, you'll have to rebuy the game for the new system at an increased price. Now that's pretty shitty, but don't go screaming at 2K just yet because it gets even worse. You can also get the Mamba Forever Edition. This version, which costs $100, will get you the base game and some additional in-game content, including microtransaction currency, but don't worry, I'll get back to that sort of thing, as well as an upgrade to the next-gen version. So while Microsoft, CD Projekt, and Bungie are busy offering this completely for free, 2K has gone ahead and monetized it at a premium. There is also a Mambo Forever Edition of the next-gen version, which gets you all the additional content in the base version of the old gen, which also costs $100. The next-gen versions offer unbeatable graphical fidelity, 2-second load speeds, new gameplay features, and expanded game modes. Getting a higher performance version on the newer system does make sense, but they're clearly locking additional gameplay features and modes behind the next-gen version, and therefore an additional paywall. And then to make matters even worse, the Mamba Forever versions refer to basketball icon Kobe Bryant, who tragically died earlier this year alongside his 13-year-old daughter. What could have been a thoughtful celebration of one of the sport's greatest athletes is instead blatant profiteering off a man's death. Dedicating a portion of the profits to his family or causes would be an excellent celebration that honours his career and contribution to the sport, but instead, they're sticking the face of a beloved player on some of the worst monetization the industry has ever had the audacity to try. And making this whole situation even more egregious than it already is, this is possibly the worst franchise to pull a move like this. The NBA 2K games have some of the most disgraceful monetization in all of gaming. You name it, they've tried it. The latest entry even abandoned all pretenses that it wasn't gambling and had literal pachinko machines and roulette wheels. Raising the price of video games in line with inflation is frustrating but very understandable, since development costs have risen while game prices have stayed relatively stable for the most part. Although even that statement isn't entirely true, because companies have been scraping out parts of the game to then resell you later as DLC or hide behind deluxe editions, so prices have been changing, they've just tried to hide it. These developers told us that microtransactions and season passes would help prevent this increase, but clearly that hasn't been enough for NBA 2K, a series that hasn't exactly been pushing gameplay in new directions with unprecedented innovation, instead just rehashing the same game year after year after year. Charging $70 for a game without any additional monetization would be an expensive pill to swallow, but at least you'd get a complete game out of it. That's not going to happen with NBA 2K21, which already mentions in-game currency. Personally, I've expected game prices to increase for a while, but if that happens and microtransactions are still in there, good luck selling anything. $70 for a game that is complete, free from microtransactions, loot boxes, season passes, paywalled content, and ultimately is actually good value for money, is a proposition that may actually be worthwhile. I recently touched on the idea that games should have variable pricing, and if this is to be the future, I absolutely think this should be the case. A content-packed game of the scale of something like The Witcher 3 or Red Dead Redemption 2, if you take out all that bullshit in the online mode, could maybe justify such a high price tag on next gen, not some fucking casino for kids disguised as a sports game. And next up, after the doom and gloom of horrific monetization with 2K, there has actually been a win for the UK in the war against it. The House of Lords in the UK, which is a step up from the House of Commons where most British legislature is decided, has said that loot boxes should be regulated under gambling laws as games of chance. I mean, we all knew that and have done for years, but at last the old blokes in red cloaks have relocated their brains and have laid down the law. In their report, the House of Lords Gambling Committee has said, and make sure you sit down for this one, kids. If a product looks like gambling and feels like gambling, it should be regulated as gambling. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's a fucking duck, mate. Quote, the government must act immediately to bring loot boxes within the remit of gambling legislation and regulation. Chairman of the committee, Lord Grade, said that other countries like Belgium are ahead of the UK on this matter because they can see the dangers which is teaching kids to gamble. He added that the Gambling Act itself is way behind what was actually happening in the market, and that the overwhelming majority of the report's recommendations could be enacted today as they don't require legislation. Clearly, no changes will be put into action today, and the likes of 2K, Activision and EA will fight tooth and nail to prevent that from happening, but this is another important step in the road to outlawing this predatory practice. The report also indicates that there is academic research which proves that there is a connection, though not necessarily a causal link, between loot box spending and problem gambling. Dr. David Zendel, professor at the University of York, explained that loot boxes cause a gambling problem or exploit a pre-existing one. However, whatever direction the link follows, which is probably both, he highlighted that the connection is extraordinarily robust. Ultimately, the House of Lords decision is that whether or not loot boxes technically don't qualify as gambling under the current definition, they should still be regulated as such anyway because they exhibit the characteristics of gambling. They also call out companies that will attempt to develop new products which blur the distinction between video gaming and gambling, and recommend that the definition be altered specifically to include loot boxes and other gambling-like products. So again, if it looks like gambling, and it sounds like gambling, and it feels like gambling, then it is gambling. There is still plenty more work to be done, but this is definitely a win in the ongoing war against loot boxes, and will throw a spanner in the works for the likes of 2K and that fucking NBA game. And finally, after some dirty monetization and then a win against dirty monetization, we've got a short one to wrap things up. Amazon is reportedly developing a new TV show based on the Fallout franchise. Jonathan Nolan, a frequent collaborator with his brother Christopher Nolan, will serve as a producer on the show along with his wife Lisa Joy. The pair run the production company Kilter Films, which is best known for its work on the Westworld TV series, with both acting as producers and co-creators. Bethesda executive producer and part-time bullshitter Todd Howard said, over the past decade, we've looked at many ways to bring Fallout to the screen, but it was clear from the moment we spoke with Jonah and Lisa a few years ago that they and the team at Kilter were the ones to do it right. We're enormous fans of their work and couldn't be more excited to work with them and Amazon Studios. This could well be the latest in a long line of outrageously successful video game adaptations, or it could be yet another petty cash grab, and given Bethesda's recent output, I'm not exactly holding my breath. But then again, maybe this will finally be the thing to make me actually like Fallout. And that's it for today. If you like this no shit format, go ahead and give the video a like to give it a boost, hit subscribe and the bell to stay notified about all future installments. Toss a coin to your YouTuber over at patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. I've been Henry Cooper. That's all for today. Bye for now.